إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر جل جلاله ربي أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أشهد أن عليا ولي الله عليه الصلاة والسلام أشهد أن عليا حجة الله عليه الصلاة والسلام حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له بسم الله اللهم اجعل قلبي بارا وشيكارا وملسارا ورزقي دمارا على دبرار وجعلني عند قبر نبيك مستقرا وقرارا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let us look today at the teachings from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam with regard to our interactions with those people who may not be fellow believers in terms of their belief, in terms of their practices, people from other communities of Muslims, Sunni Muslims, or others who do not identify as followers of Ahlul Bayt and as Shia, maybe people who are fasiq, who commit sins, or who are munafiq, are hypocritical. There are all kinds of people in our society, sometimes even in our circle of acquaintances, and sometimes even in our families. And there is a tendency among some people that they ignore anyone who is not up to their spiritual standard. So if I say that I want to be pious, then I ignore anybody who is not equally pious or equally practicing. And there is a balance that we need to maintain. We shouldn't treat everybody equally, whether they are believing or non-believing, pious or non-pious, because then we will not be able to keep and better our own level of piety and practice. If it makes no difference to me if I'm going on a trip, whether the person that I am going to be traveling with practices or does not practice. If it makes no difference to me whether they pray or don't pray, fast or don't fast, eat halal or don't eat halal, then I am going to also be setting myself up to lose my sensitivity and my carefulness about my own practice. It should make a difference for me. On the one hand, we have to maintain a good environment for our spiritual health. On the other hand, if I write off and ignore every friend, every family member, every acquaintance who does not have that level of practice, then I am not going to be doing anything to improve society. I am going to be impoverishing myself and impoverishing society. We are to be present. And we are to be a role model and an example and a force for good. So there is a balance we have to maintain. Not to be influenced by bad behavior, but not to withdraw from society and therefore become unable to make it better. And Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam, they have a number of hadith that provide guidance. The first hadith I would like to look at is from our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. And the Imam in this hadith is referring to the Shia. He says, Ya ma'ashara Shia, O those who are Shia, who are called the followers of the Imams. And they were known as the Shia in the time of the Imams themselves. Although people called the Shia not just those who believed in the 12 Imams, anybody who gave the preference to Imam Ali and Ahlul Bayt was called a Shia. Now, does that person know who is the Imam of their time? Or do they have a general loyalty to Ahlul Bayt, to Imam Ali, to Imam Hussein? Do they know what the teachings of Ahlul Bayt are? Or is it just in name? They were called Shia just because of their loyalty. And our Imams wanted to make them not just Shia in name, but Shia in practice and in character. And so the Imam says, Ya ma'ashara Shia, innakum qad nusibtum ilayna. You are attributed to us. This is a very important point. If your name is Muhammad, then it's just a name that you were given by your parents. But in one way, your name reminds people of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If your name is Fatima or Zainab, then you are not the Ma'soom, but your name is something that reminds people of a Ma'soom. So Ahlul Bayt, they say that innakum qad nusibtum ilayna. You are all attributed to us. In one way, you are affiliated, and people know of you, even if your name is not Muhammad or your name is not Zainab, people know of you as being related to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam. Given that you are attributed to Ahlul Bayt, the Imam says, Kunu lana zayna wa la takunu alayna shayna. Be a source of adornment for us and not a source of shame for us. Everybody who is a Shia, our character and our practice should be something that is a source of honor for Ahlul Bayt, not a source of dishonor for them. And that's a general principle. Something may be wajib in Islam. And if it's wajib, that means it's good for us. But I should not advocate for something good in a way that brings dishonor to Ahlul Bayt. because of society, for whatever reason it might be. And many things that we do, they're not actually good or beneficial, they're tradition, they're habit, they're custom. And if something is a custom or a habit, but it is not elegant, it is not honorable, it is not respectable, then I should not have more loyalty to tradition than I have to the truth, to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam. And then the Imam says, مَا يَمْنَعُكُمْ أَن تَكُونُوا مِثْلَ أَصْحَابِ عَلِيٍّ رِضْوَانُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ فِي النَّاسِ. Why can't you be like the companions of Imam Ali alayhi salam? The companions of Imam Ali, their character was such that they invited people towards the truth. The Imam says that among the companions of Imam Ali, there were people who were a single person in a tribe. That person would be the one that everybody would refer to for guidance. He would be the one that they would refer to be the leader of the prayer. He would be the one who would give adhan. He would be the one that people would entrust their valuables to if they were going on a journey. He would be the one to visit them when they were sick or when they were in need, or to perform their funeral prayers. These are the kinds of things that we should do. They are a source of blessing, and they are one way that we can honor the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. Reciting the adhan, being somebody that is entrusted with helping people in their time of need, being somebody who volunteers to wash a body, to provide assistance and comfort to a grieving family. These are the kinds of things that can bring hearts close together, remove people's prejudice against the Shia, and it provides an assistance to them as well. And then the Imam says that be the kind of people, لا يسبقوكم إلى خير. Don't let any group of people come first to something that is good. When it comes to volunteering for a good cause, if you are a follower of Ahlul Bayt, then you should be the first to volunteer your time, to volunteer your money, to stand up for what is true and what is good for humanity. That is the essence of our religion and our belief. And Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, he says that is how you can be zayn and adornment and not be shame, not be a source of shame or embarrassment for Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam. Now, one principle that we have when dealing with people who are not good Muslims is that we shouldn't take what they say for granted. Be kind to them, and in the future when we talk about our interactions with the non-Muslims, we will give more detail that Islam says you should be good even to non-Muslims. It shouldn't be a barrier to kindness, to friendship. But be aware that when somebody is not pious, then you have to be basing your interactions in justice. And don't let down your guard. Sometimes because that person may wish to encourage you to do something that your religion says is not good, for whatever reason. Some things that we consider to be immodesty, other people may consider to be fun, or they may actually consider it to be a good or a needed pastime for a person. So they may encourage you to do something that they think is not harmful, or maybe even beneficial. They think that it might save you from depression or sadness or loneliness. It might make you a well-rounded person, whereas we don't become well-rounded by demeaning our spiritual state. So have your guard up. Sometimes because people may have a deliberate attempt to change your perspective. And in many cases, there's no deliberate evil, but it's just a different value system that they don't see the harm to the soul or to the emotions or to the body of many actions that Islam has told us are not good. In Surah Al-Hujurat, Allah says, "Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu in ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyan." When somebody who is fasiq, who is not pious, comes to you with information, then always take it with a grain of salt. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Take it with a grain of salt. Do research, but don't just believe it, and then slowly your opinions and your worldview may be influenced in that negative direction. There is a hadith of Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salatu wassalam. And I will mention this hadith in brief. It's a little bit of a lengthy hadith. The Imam says that there are 5 groups of people that you should be careful of. Don't write off people because they are not believers. Don't assume that everybody who is a believer is a good person to be friends with, because there might be people who say that they are Shia or that they are Muslim, but their character may not be worthy. There are 5 attributes that you should look for before you decide to be friends with somebody. If you're going to go on a journey, before you decide to invite them to accompany you or accept their invitation and join them on a trip, or to invite them to your house. The Imam says that when it comes to suhbah, when it comes to muhadatha, which is like an invitation at home and casual conversation, and then murafaqa, which is traveling together, these different types of close association, make sure that the person's character is worthy. What are the attributes that we should be on the lookout for? One is, the Imam says, don't associate with kadhab, somebody who does not care about telling the truth. Now, it might seem obvious, but sometimes we look at ourselves and we realize that we don't always tell the truth, meaning that we are not a worthy friend to be an associate of somebody. If the truth kind of serves my interests and I don't have a sense of what is right and what is wrong, and if something is true but maybe against my interests, if I have a hard time saying it, then that means that I am not a good person for others to associate with. So when you look at your friends, then if somebody plays fast and loose with the truth, their truth is subjective. Does it benefit me or does it harm me? Then keep a little bit of a distance. To the extent that they are kadhab, you should be on guard against them. They might be very fun to be with, but associating with somebody who does not tell the truth desensitizes us to lying and to falsehood. And the Imam says that this person is going to be like a mirage. They will say things, but then when it actually comes to testing it, you'll find out that there's nothing there. You think there's water and there is nothing there. So be on guard against somebody who is kadhab. Then the Imam says, be on guard against somebody who is fasiq, somebody for whom sins are not a big deal. Gambling or alcohol or lying. If they don't consider it a big deal to say something or do something that is prohibited, then be on guard. Because a fasiq person can never be loyal. Sometimes they might seem to be loyal, but if we are not loyal to ourselves and if we are not loyal to Allah, then we cannot truly be loyal to others as well. Then the Imam says, be careful of associating with somebody who is bakhil, who is stingy, because that person will either sell you out or make you the kind of person who will sell out your real interest for the sake of something that is passing. Associating with a stingy person will eventually convince you that you shouldn't help your family, you shouldn't help your community, you should reduce your generous contributions to any worthy cause, because one day, 20 years from now, something may go wrong and you may need it. It's the nature of stingy people. they think that if you save enough money, you're not going to have difficulty. When the reality is that yes, we should save, but sometimes what protects us is the sadaqah and not the saving. Sometimes if I were to give $50 in sadaqah, then I might be saved from a very big harm that would come to me if I put it in the bank. God forbid, and I get sick and I get into an accident, then the harm to my emotional well-being and even to my financial well-being, it might be much bigger than the amount I was giving in sadaqah. A stingy person cannot calculate that and cannot see that. And when you associate with them, you also will gradually become blind to it. So the association with a stingy person is harmful. And the Imam says, wal ahmaq, somebody who is foolish. We shouldn't associate with people. It doesn't mean somebody with a low IQ. There are people who are not very high IQ, but they live a good life, meaning they live a reasonable life, and based on whatever experience or knowledge they have, they may not have an advanced degree, they may not have traveled around the world, but based on the knowledge and the experience they have, they make reasonable decisions and good decisions. Many people are illiterate, but they're not by any means foolish. The Imam says, avoid the company of those who are foolish, whether they're illiterate or whether they're highly educated, but somebody who doesn't make good decisions, who doesn't think about the consequences of their actions, because such a person, they may try to give you good advice, but their advice and their decisions will end up being foolish like themselves. And then finally the Imam says, don't associate with people who don't care about their families. Qati'ur rahim. A person who does not give importance to family, or a person who cuts off their family, that person is going to be, Imam says, cursed. In Kitabullah, in the Quran, and in the teachings of Islam, so that person will not bring any good to me. Their existence, it is an existence that is going to be lacking in barakah. Not in the sense that Qati'ur Rahim is going to have a thunderbolt come from the heavens. But there are certain kinds of people, they are just concerned about their own individual well-being. The reason why they do Qati'atul Rahim, why they cut off their family, is because their family is not that important, their own comfort or ease is more important to them. That kind of person will be selfish. That kind of person will not help me develop a sense of empathy, a sense of obligation, those long-term traits that we need to develop as a human being. A person who is Qati'ur Rahim, who does not care about their family, they are not going to have and they are not going to help me develop. And so that curse is not just something of the hereafter, but it is also there in this world. And eventually it will show up and it will poison my own life and my own family relations. So this is a hadith from our fifth Imam that mentions some groups of people that we should be careful to avoid associating with. Now let us look briefly at the teachings about munafiqeen as well. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. One very basic teaching that we have from the Quran, Innal munafiqeen humul fasiqun. The sinful people in reality are those who are dishonest about their faith. And sometimes a person may say good things, they may actually look very religious, but then they don't have it in their heart, they're just a talker. And we might think this person is religious. And sometimes people will actually have a negative impression of religion and religious people because they see somebody with a beard, or they see somebody who prays, or they see somebody in good hijab who is arrogant or lies, or they went and they bought a car from somebody who seemed to be a good Muslim, and then they find out that they were lied to, and they say, well, religious people are like that. The person might pray, the person might fast, they might go for Hajj, but if you are munafiq, then that is fisq. So the reality of faith, it should not just be something that we say, but it should be something that shows itself in our practice and in our character. And this is not for me to judge other people, but it is for me to make sure that my own practice does not resemble the munafiqeen. So my faith is one that is deeply rooted. And also for me to recognize others and be on guard if someone else's practice is not proper. So what are the attributes of the fasiqeen? According to a hadith of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, the Imam says, ثَلَاثٌ مَنْ كُنَّ فِيهِ فَهُوَ مُنَافِقٌ وَإِنْ صَامَ وَصَلَّى. Three attributes, if a person has them, they are a munafiq, even if they pray and fast. They still are a munafiq if they have these three attributes. Those three attributes are, when they speak, they lie. They don't speak the truth. Second, if they give you a promise, then they may or may not fulfill that promise. They can go against their promise. Third is, if they are trusted with something, then they don't honor that trust. And the trust can be a physical thing. If you give me something for safekeeping and I don't take care of it, it can also be a secret. If I find out about a secret, or if you ask me for my advice and I find out something about your private affairs, but then I gossip about it or I tell people about it, this is also a trust. A munafiq is a person who lies when they speak, who breaks promises, and who breaks trusts without caring about it. Then don't say that this is a religious person who does these things. That is a sign that a person, even if the person prays, as the Imam says, or fasts, they are a munafiq, not a mu'min. And then in another hadith, Imam Ja'far Sadiq gives a few other attributes. He says, there are three people who should be honored by believers. And if you don't honor them, then you are a munafiq. ثَلَاثٌ لَا يَجْهَلُ حَقَّهُمْ إِلَّا مُنَافِقٌ مَعْرُوفٌ بِالنِّفَاقِ. Only a munafiq will not honor three people. This is part of the culture of Islam that we have to develop within ourselves and within our communities. And this was one of the things that protects us from nifaq. First is ذُو الشَّيْبَةِ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ. Honor people who are elderly and the older generation of Muslims. When I honor the old, elderly members of my family and my community, that means I'm developing a connection with people from a different time, a different generation, different experiences. And that very honoring of them, the connection that I have, makes me humble and it protects me from nifaq. So if somebody doesn't honor the elderly, they think that they know everything, then that is a sign of nifaq. Second is hamilul Quran. We should honor people who are carriers of the Quran. Those who recite the Quran, those who memorize the Quran, those who recite the Quran beautifully, those who are teachers of the Quran, even if it's just the Sunday school teacher of my children. But that person should be honored. Somebody who is carrying the Quran in whatever way they are carrying it, they're not going to be ma'soom. A qari of Quran and a hafidh of Quran can be somebody who makes many mistakes. But by honoring them, we're honoring not them, we're honoring the Quran. Just like by honoring Sadat, you're not honoring that person, you're honoring Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if I don't honor people who are teachers of the Quran, this is another area where we are showing nifaq, wal imam al-adil. And you should honor somebody who is an imam and is just. And of course, this was one of the expressions our imams would use for the imam ma'soom, but also for anybody who is in a position of leadership and does acquit themselves and act with justice and with fairness, that person should be honored. So those who do not do so, they are signs of nifaq. May Allah protect us from weakness in our iman and from nifaq, and grant us the character which, in the words of Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, will make us a source of pride for Ahlul Bayt and not a source of embarrassment or shame for Ahlul Bayt. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. Fasalli li rabbika wanhar. Inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على محمد سيد أنبيائه ورسله وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما علي أمير المؤمنين وعلى فاطمة الزهراء وعلى الحسن والحسين وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة القائم المهدي صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In the second khutbah, I begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His bounties and asking Him for forgiveness for my own sins and shortcomings, and asking forgiveness for all of us present and all mu'mineen and mu'minat throughout the world. Just one hadith from our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu was-salam. This is a summary, perhaps, of our first khutbah in one sentence. The Imam says that صانع المنافق بلسانك وأخلص ودك للمؤمن. When you meet somebody of weak faith who is a munafiq, then be kind to them with your tongue. Meaning your outward interaction should be honorable, should be kind, should be cordial. Don't make enemies of anybody just because they might not be a good person without reason. وَأَخْلِصْ وُدَّكْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِ. But when you find somebody who is a believer, who is a lover of Ahlul Bayt, who is a good person inside and outside, then give them your full love. So sometimes we forget the first part, and somebody who we don't consider to be a good person or a good believer, we make enemies, we speak rudely to them. We should not be the one who initiates any kind of hostility. Be kind, be cordial to everyone. But then when you find a believer, when you find somebody who is a lover of Ahlul Bayt, then أخلص ودك للمؤمن. Then be very sincere and very devoted to that person and build that relationship, and don't let it get weakened. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the patience to be able to deal with people who may be frustrating for us, may even be antagonistic or unkind to us. And may Allah grant us the tawfiq to develop relationships based on iman, where we can strengthen our faith and the faith of each other on the basis of our shared devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i dhil qurba وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. صلاة الجمعة. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل يا أيها الكافرون لا أعبد ما تعبدون ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد ولا أنا عابد ما عبدتم ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد لكم دينكم ولي دين الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر بحول الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد كذلك الله ربنا الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته الله أكبر الله أكبر
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم أهدني من عندك وأفض علي من فضلك وانشر علي من رحمتك وأنزل علي من بركاتك ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وقنا عذاب القبر وقنا عذاب الحشر وقنا عذاب الميزان وقنا عذاب الدنيا وقنا عذاب المرز وقنا عذاب القرز بحق محمد وآل محمد لا إله إلا
صل على محمد. صلاة العصر. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم أحينا حياة محمد وذريته وأمتنا مماتهم وتوفنا على ملتهم ولا تفرق بيننا وبينهم طرفة عين أبدا في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله. سبحان الله والحمد لله. سبحان الله والحمد لله. سبحان الله والحمد لله. ولا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إن مغفرتك أرجى من عملي وإن رحمتك أوسع من ذنبي. اللهم إن كان ذنبي عندك عظيما فعفوك أعظم من ذنبي. اللهم إن لم أكن أهلا نبلغ رحمتك فرحمتك أهل أن تبلغني وتسعني لأنها وسعت كل شيء برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام على علي أمير المؤمنين. السلام على فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام على الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. السلام على الأئمة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. السلام عليكم جميعا أهل بيت النبوة ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على